So Tennessee, if you haven't checked it out yet, go to offthehooksports.com. They pick up a commitment, a 3-star safety, Edrees Farooq. Your thoughts on him and how I'm pronouncing his name? Would you judge that as good, bad, not so great? Dave, what are you doing?
I think you did it as good as you could. I
Thank
think
you.
this is still, this is Josh Heupel is going all in on defensive backs until he can shore up that what happened last year. That's so very clear. He's already got Shamar Arno committed for 2025, cornerback. This is a big deal because Tennessee's losing Jalen McCullough after this year. So I think this is, again, throwing things at the wall, see what sticks with defensive back. That's what Josh Heupel's doing. When you were off last week, Dave, I brought a little bit of a history lesson. What Josh Heupel's doing with defensive backs is what FDR did during the Great Depression, which is the New Deal. What a lot of people don't know is most of the New Deal programs was FDR throwing stuff at the wall to see what would work. He didn't actually know what was going to work or not work during that time period. And Social Security was just thrown at the wall, like, let's try this. and so that's basically what Josh Heupel is doing at defensive back. He's throwing stuff at the wall, see who he can find.
Nope, I would agree with that. Let me tell you a little bit more about Farooq, a 3-star safety who committed to Tennessee over Arkansas, Colorado, Ole Miss, Wisconsin, and Penn State. He visited over the weekend, and he ranks as the number 561 player nationally, number 47 safety, and the number 17 player from Maryland, attends St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. What does that tell you about Tennessee recruiting? It tells me that Tennessee is still willing to be in reach mode, try to get a guy early who other schools haven't identified, and then hold on to him. But the simple fact is, nowadays, with players getting paid in the transfer portal, you don't necessarily have to hold on to him. Let's say, this guy is 6 foot tall, 180 pounds, and he shows up to his first game in the fall, and he's 6 foot tall, 165 pounds, and he hasn't hit the weight room. Nowadays, you can just cut bait with him, and it doesn't hurt your recruiting reputation at all.
No, that's true. That's a very good point. And I want to call some people, like Tennessee right now is number 7 in recruiting. Don't get too excited about that. We don't know how it's going to end up in 2024. I still think they're going to have a great class, but you've talked about how the recruiting calendar's moved up, Dave. The truth of the matter is, though, still, even though the calendar's moved up, the elite players, they ain't commit until June at least. The bulk of the elite players aren't going to commit till June. So Alabama has, over the past 5-6 years, has had moments where they're not even in the top 25 in April, and then they're number 1 in June. So,
So right now, Tennessee would be 7th overall, which would be it'd be 3rd in the SEC behind Georgia, who's number 1, LSU, who's number 2. So rounding out that top 10, Ohio State in at number 3, Ohio State in at number 2, Michigan number 3, LSU, as I mentioned, number 4, Notre Dame at number 5, Florida State number 6, Tennessee now number 7 with 9 commits. Penn State at number 8, Florida number 9, and Oregon at number 10. The one that deserves a shout out that I get accused of ripping a lot, kudos to South Carolina, who's in at the 11th position and has 6 4-star commitments. So major kudos to them. To be knocking up against the top 10 is pretty significant. I think ultimately South Carolina, though, will be judged in how they compete this season. Their prospects are getting on board early, but what happens if they have shortcomings on their coaching staff, which I believe they do, then do some of these guys bolt in October? We'll see.
This is solely based on 2 4-stars they got because they beat Tennessee last year, Cam Pringle and Mazeo Bennett. And you're right. Those 2 could easily transfer midway through this upcoming year. And which, by the way, I want to bring this up. Speaking of transfers, Dave, I wanted to know your thoughts because we'll probably have transfer portal news over the next 2 weeks. I say don't read anything into this portal window. Players transferring into this portal window are players who are transferring because they weren't good enough to win a starting job in spring practice where they were at.
Agree, but let me ask you this question: what if Tennessee takes a quarterback in this transfer portal?
It's funny. Josh Ward and I talked about that last week, and you could see them taking like a veteran quarterback to have another option in case Joe Milton gets hurt. And I don't think that's a problem. But what I'm saying is don't expect any transfer they pick up in this window to be a starter.
Yeah, I don't think that when you look in this window, if Tennessee takes a quarterback that you're upset or concerned about Joe Milton, but it would be curious to me if they took one. At the very least, wouldn't you want 3 scholarship quarterbacks headed into the season? Is Gaston Moore or Navy Schuler your answer if something were to happen too?
Oh, you absolutely need 3 scholarship quarterbacks. I mean, to be fair, though, throughout most of Fulmer's tenure, he only operated with 2 scholarship quarterbacks, didn't he?
Yeah, the goal was always to have 3, but he rarely did because somebody's going to transfer even before the transfer portal rules were so loose. This has always been my thought on if you're a championship contender. Listen, if you're Butch Jones and this is the mid 2000s and you want to win 9 games, then you better make darn sure that you have 3 scholarship quarterbacks, right? Because what happens if you lose 2? Then you at least want to make a run for that 8-9 wins. But if you're Tennessee and you're thinking championship level, Caleb, if they were to lose for whatever reason, Joe Milton and Nico, they're not winning the championship.
Yeah,
that's the end of that conversation.
I agree. It's look, right now they may not win one if Nico starts this year. He's still got a lot of work to do. So if they lose Joe, they're not winning a championship. And I'm still pretty high on they're just not winning a championship this year, guys.